All right, we're gonna try a little training video. Those of you who always serve at Bellevue Loves Memphis know that we love to train and equip you before you go, and we'll not really do that for this weekend, but it's just as important. So I want you to have a few things before we get there so that you know what to expect. So we will have two different age groups. One will be ages 4 to 8, and the second age group will be ages 9 to 14. They may not go up quite to 14, but that'll be the cap if we do. So the first would be 4 to 8, and so you might have a few kids that are a little bit younger than that, but 4 to 8 would be the max of that. In both groups, you're going to be doing the same thing. So you're going to be sharing the gospel by using resurrection eggs that have fun little pieces on the inside. There's a little rooster. And then you'll also be doing a craft with your kids, and that is really to allow time for the rest of them to hear the gospel in a deeper way. We'll talk about that in just a second. And then you'll also be hiding eggs. So first of all, sharing the story. So those of you who are going to be sharing the story, I'm going to call all of your names out here. It's in the document, but if you're like me, it is sometimes tedious to read through a long document, so I'm going to do that here. So ages 4 to 8, those telling the story will be Erica. You'll be doing the donkey and the coins. Andrea, you will share the cup and the praying hands. And then Noah, you will do the whip and the rooster. This will be the fun little rooster for yours. It's the little example that I have. David Jacobs, you will be sharing about the crown and the cross. Neely, you will share about the spear and the linen. And Sarah, you will share about the stone and the empty tomb. So those are the parts of your story. If you will scroll down to the bottom of the document that is in the same email, you will see the script for that. So as you're thinking about telling the story, this is ages 4 to 8. Let me go ahead and share who's going to be sharing the story for ages 9 to 14, because then I'll give tips on sharing the story. So ages 9 to 14, these are the storytellers. Parker, you're going to be sharing the donkey and the coins. Rachel, cup and praying hands. Nick, you have the whip and the rooster. Lauren, you have the crown and the cross. Michael, you have the spear and linen, and I will be sharing the stone and the empty tomb. Okay, so for those of us sharing the story, just a few tips about that. First of all, you're going to have handed out 12 of these eggs to 12 volunteers of the kids. You want them to look in their eggs and find their item. And if they have an egg that matches with what you're sharing, then you can have them either hold it up so that people can see, or they can come sit beside you, whatever you feel is most appropriate for the time. So let them be a part of that. Have them come stand with you. That's probably going to be the best option because you can kind of keep them under control a little bit better. So just have them go ahead and come stand with you at the front to be a volunteer. They're going to stand beside you as you share the story. And then when you're done, they can either sit down beside you or go back and join the rest of the group and sit down. But once they show their egg, have them give the egg back to you. It just makes it simpler than having to collect it at the end. So as you're sharing the story, each group will also have someone that will be going through the story using a picture book. And so this way we're engaging a lot of the different senses for the kids as we teach, but they'll have different things to look through. So each age group is going to have a flip book to go through, and I'll share who's doing that as well. Also, for little kids, your location is going to be on the steps outside the large concrete area. So if you served at Bellevue Loves Memphis, this is where we serve the hot food. So that's where you're going to be. The older kids are going to be inside. The reason for that is we want the older kids to be a little bit more focused because they are the ones that are probably going to be a little bit more in tune to hearing the Spirit speak to them that day. So if you're sharing the story, make sure that you know the story well enough to not have to read it. You don't want to be reading a script. You want to keep the kids engaged. So if you know the script well enough, and we all do, we all know the Easter story. So if you know the script well enough, you'll be able to really talk and engage with the kids without having to be looking at a piece of paper the whole time. So make sure you have read what you're your part is to be able to fully engage and interact with them and make hand motions and facial gestures and voice inflections and all the things that make things engaging for kids and honestly for all of us as we listen through. So that is going to be the story time. Now, during the story time, those who are helping with craft, if you do not have a part in the story, a couple of you do. Erica, Andrea, you for sure do, and as well as Parker and Rachel. So you have a part in the story, but I think you're also helping with craft. But if you do not have a part in the story, then you will be hiding the Easter eggs while we are sharing the story. So if you will plan to go ahead, all of the 4 to 8 age group team, you're going to be hiding your eggs on the kids' playground, and it's going to be inside a gated off area, so you'll be able to easily identify that. For the older kids, you're going to be hiding the eggs on the grassy area under the trees outside. So all of that is going to be closer to the community center, between the apartment complexes and the community center. We'll show you when we get there on Saturday, but just know older kids, you'll be hiding on the grass around the trees, and then younger kids, you'll be hiding in the actual playground area, nowhere outside of that. So that is hiding the eggs. Okay, so now let's move into the counseling time. So after the story is shared, for example, when Sarah finishes or when I finish sharing the stone in the empty tomb, we're going to tell the story without stopping. So as one person finishes, the next person will just start. We won't say, okay, now we're going to talk about this. You're just going to go person to person. So just kind of follow along on the document, know where you are. There is a costume that can be worn, I think, for the little kids' ages. That would be fun. And maybe that could be the person who is flipping the book if you choose to wear a costume. So I think that would be fun. Dawn, in your case, you might be the person who flips the book. And if you want to wear the costume, super fun. If not, not a big deal. But at the end of the time, there will be one person who's going to be asking questions of the kids and just helping them to remember what they've heard in the story. Dawn, you'll be doing that for the little kids, and then Brent, you'll be doing that for the older kids. And then once those questions are asked, then we'll have another person come up and share the gospel presentation. And so with that, Sarah, you're going to be sharing the gospel with the younger kids, and then I'll be sharing the gospel with the older kids. And we really want to walk through like what sin is, share verses. Sarah, you and I will talk about this a little bit more in detail, but we want to make sure they hear the complete gospel. The important thing when you're sharing the gospel with kids is that we never give a group invitation. We always want to have them bow their heads, close their eyes. I've seen this to be most effective. Bow your heads, close your eyes, make sure no one is looking around, and then have them raise their hand if they want to know more information about how Jesus can take their sin away, or however you want to phrase that question. And then those that raise their hands, just have them stand up and come with you to talk more. And so then we have counselors that are going to take those kids to the side. There's a little room inside the community center that we can use for that, for counseling, or you can find a place outside. So the counselors for the 4 to 8-year-olds are going to be Terry, Dawn, Sarah, Erica, and Danielle. Terry, Dawn, Sarah, Erica, and Danielle. So you will be counselors. You'll have little counseling cards for you and also a decision sheet for any kids that you counsel. If they're 4 and 5 years old, I'm not saying don't lead them to the Lord, like trust the Lord in that. But if they're only 4 or 5 years old, be super, super careful with that. Just make sure that they have a really good understanding of the decision that they're making. Most in that environment at 4 and 5 would be a little young, but I'm not saying that the Lord cannot save them. So just be super careful, use discernment and wisdom in that. And then you'll have a counseling card to fill out once you're done talking with any kid that comes to you for counseling. That way Eric will be able to go back and follow up with them. Now for the older group, the people that will be counseling will be me, Michael, Brent, and James. So we'll be counseling the older group of kids for that, and the same thing applies. Now we'll move into the craft. The reason that we're doing a craft, one, it's fun for the kids, but two, when people get pulled aside, we don't want them to miss the Easter egg hunt so that they can hear more about Christ. So we want to have a filler so that as other kids are making their craft, then the ones that we're counseling will be able to, they'll miss the craft. We can send one home with them, but then they'll still be able to join for the egg hunt. So those doing craft for the younger kids, 4 to 8, will be Kelsey, Hunter, Adrian, Addison, Neely, and Noah. And then the ones doing older, 9 to 14 crafts will be Rachel, Daniel, Parker, Lauren, and Nick. So if we need story people to help in with that, you can help with craft as well. And then the craft we'll be doing, I'm not opening up this, but it's an Easter wreath. So you can see the wreath frame there, and then these are just the foam stickers that they stick all around it. And you'll want to make sure they stick it in the order, so you might want to do one in advance, but stick it in the order that the story has been told. So that will go back through the story that they heard. And as you're making the craft, maybe ask them questions about what does the donkey mean, and what did the pieces of silver mean, those kind of things. So I think that is it. I'm super excited to be serving with you all. Thank you for giving up your Easter Saturday to share Jesus at Peppertree. We will see you on Saturday.